This is the headquarters hall of the Theosophical Society, in which, in memory of the founders of the great religions of the past, it was Socrates who said that a life not examined is not worth living. So in the series of dialogues, you and I are going to be looking at life from two ways. There is the ancient way, which is represented by the various teachings which you see around here, and the modern way, which is a combination of the scientific way as well as a psychological way. The scientific way was not available in those days. Instead, it was only the psychological way. Going back to what Socrates said, what is life about? And we ask that question, a human being asks that question, what is life about? But consider for the fact that science has been able to say that in fact the human in a civilized fashion is hardly 10,000 years old. And it is such a human who asked the question, what is life? That question was never asked probably 2,500 years ago. So in order to understand a human who can ask this question, we must ask, how did the human being come on this planet? And isn't it a miracle that after 5 billion years of evolution, going from the single cell through various paths, that evolution has produced a being which is capable of looking at life and say, what is life? But consider further, the brain of a human, or for that matter, the brain of any being, any living being, is designed so that the being can succeed in life, compete, continue to exist, have mates, look after children, and all that. And it is that brain which is asking, and one may say, is an answer to the question, what is life, necessary for the being to exist or to continue to live? And obviously, no, it is not necessary. Then why is the human being asked that question? The human being doesn't need an answer in order to live. And you can see, as you look around, there are very few people who put that question, and most of them can continue to live without a problem, without knowing an answer to the question. So it is essential to understand what sort of human being can ask that question and pursue to find that answer. So we need to look at that And part of the question is, how did the human beings arrive at this stage of evolution? So science has been able to delve in and to see that mankind started in Tanzania about 5 million years ago. And the two species, the chimpanzees, the primate, and the human beings went off separately, and the human being became the two-legged animal with a larger brain and who could use his hands. And such a human being was able to grow to make tools, and later on migrated from Tanzania to all parts of the planet. But in the process, he learned. Among the people who asked that question and may have found the answer is Gautama Buddha and various other people who formed the basis of the Upanishads. And Buddha stated that if a human being were to follow the Noble Eightfold Path, maybe he'll find the cause of misery in human life, and that is due to tanha or desire. So that's the ones which has driven human beings all around the world to seek things for themselves, both desire and fear of death, fear of not continuing to exist. In the Upanishads, it is stated that there is a power, a creative power behind all life, and they termed it as Brahman, and said no amount of action can a human being arrive at the Brahman. And they said it is beyond words, beyond description, and every human has to strive for it. Modern sages like J. Krishnamurti stated there is a mystery, and every human must strive to arrive at that mystery. And so did Ramana Maharshi. So there have been people who have discovered it for some reason, others have not come to it. But a path has been shown by them. And so going back to Socrates' question, so to examine life and to arrive at the root cause of what is in life. And that is our target, and there have been people who have arrived at it. And so merely putting that question is not enough. We have to put a great amount of energy into it. Now there are two ways of communicating this. One is the verbal communication or through models, and science has used models. And the other one is what's called the direct perception. Models will take us in a certain limited way, then it is direct perception which takes over. The implication of direct perception is that while a speaker is speaking on this, you, the listener, are not listening to the words, but in fact you are seeing the meaning pointed out by the speaker, and it is that meaning that you are following without the words registering in your brain. That's to say, you are directly perceiving what the speaker is talking about. Then what happens? Whatever you see is seen directly by you. You don't need the speaker, you don't need his words, and therefore the seeing is yours. There is no authority required for your seeing, and what you see is yours. That's the type of seeing, that's the type of understanding which we are trying to arrive at. So let us see what is evolution in a more detailed fashion. Exactly what is evolution? In a simple sense, there is the constant striving of a being. For example, if you take a herbivore like an antelope or a zebra, it is striving and it is striving to avoid being caught by a carnivore. So therefore its senses have to be very good, its ability to run good, and also it should be in a position to find a mate, and by this constant striving it produces better offspring. And an animal which is not able to that is not able to have a good offspring. So this is the way that every generation, by the conflict between the prey and the predator, becomes better every generation. And that is true not only of animals and birds and insects, but is true of human beings also. So that every generation produces a better human being, and you can see that over the last 10,000 years, how mankind has become more skillful in several ways and has built a vast society, civilization, because of this pressure of evolution. Now we are not very clear whether this evolution, the better gene, is passed on only through genetics from one generation to another, or does it pass on that if one human being is better, then he automatically is able to affect the human beings around himself, around that person. Maybe reproduction is not the only way that a better gene is passed on. Maybe there is a certain other way, and we have to assume that. And that way, the growth of civilization would be faster rather than merely through genetics. But we still do not know the full implication of evolution. That is still under a scientific basis. Now what does science do? Science looks at facts, measures data, and prepares a model. And using that model is able to project what other facts or data would turn up, and they look for it, and when they find it, they accept the model. And such a model is a simplified model which could become more complicated as more facts turn up. But all such models are kept as hypotheses because new events which are measured, if it says that the model doesn't hold, the model will be given up sooner or later. So scientific models are kept as tentative hypotheses to explain what is happening in the world. But they are still models, so there is a difference between models and the observed events. These observed events are all based upon direct perception. The model is a preparation of the mind which has no reality. So that's the difference between the model and the direct perception. So this is science then produces models to explain what is happening in the world. But the psychological way of looking is to look at oneself and look at the world as one unitary approach, using a direct perception without the intervention of a name. A name is a model. So when you see something, you look at it closely with a great amount of experience, sensuous experience, with empathy, and you're looking at a human being, you're looking at an animal, you're looking at a plant, you're looking at that with sensuous experience. When you do that, such an experience is a direct experience And when you look at yourself, you are able to see the fear, the greed, the ambition, and all the things which run in the human being. And that can be done without the intervention of a scientific model. If there is a model which intervenes, then what is seen, what is experienced, will be substituted by the model, and there will be no experience, but it will be only the experience of the model. And that's the way illusion arises, because the model takes over and builds an experience. So it's the combination of the scientific model and the psychological seeing which makes the ultimate understanding of life. In the ancient days, they did not have the scientific understanding. They had only a psychological model, and a few people found the truth through the psychological model. But modern days, we do have a scientific model, and we can go further and further and see why the scientific model will have to give up and the psychological model will take over, and that psychological model will lead you to the truth, which will have a revolution in your consciousness.